On June 8, 1924, two men disappeared into a cloud near the summit of Mount Everest and vanished from human sight for 75 years. George Mallory and Andrew Irvine were attempting what no human had ever achieved, climbing to the roof of the world with equipment that would seem laughably primitive by today's standards. They carried no supplemental oxygen regulators, wore wool and cotton clothing, and used rope that would fail modern safety tests. Yet eyewitness Noel Odell spotted them through a break in the clouds, ascending strongly toward the summit at 12:50 p.m., just 800 vertical feet from the top. Then the mist swallowed them whole. 29 years later, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay would be celebrated as the first to summit Everest. But were they really? This documentary explores the evidence, the theories, and the haunting possibility that history got it wrong. The 1924 British Everest expedition represented the pinnacle of imperial ambition and human determination. George Lee Mallory, at 37, was already a veteran of two previous Everest attempts. His climbing partner, 22-year-old Andrew Irvine, was chosen not for his mountaineering experience, but for his mechanical brilliance with the experimental oxygen apparatus. The expedition established camps up the north ridge of Everest, the Tibetan approach that would remain the standard route for decades. By early June, they had pushed Camp 6ing to 26,800 feet, an altitude where the human body begins to die from lack of oxygen. Mallory carried a small camera, a vest pocket Kodak, to document their achievement if they succeeded. On June 6th, he wrote his final letter to his wife Ruth, stating he would make one last attempt for the summit. The letter revealed his determination bordering on obsession. He had been asked why he wanted to climb Everest, and his famous response echoed through mountaineering history: because it's there. But behind those simple words lay a complex man driven by glory, duty, and an almost spiritual connection to the mountain that would become his tomb. Noel Odell, the expedition's geologist and support climber, provided the only eyewitness account of Mallory and Irvine's final hours. Climbing in support on June 8th, Odell was at 26,000 feet when the monsoon clouds that had plagued them all morning suddenly parted at 12:50 p.m. Through his binoculars, he saw two tiny black figures silhouetted against the snow, moving upward on a prominent rock step. He watched them for about 5 minutes before the clouds closed in permanently. Odell's testimony has been analyzed, debated, and questioned for a century. Which rock step did he actually see them on? The second step at 28,300 feet would put them on schedule for a successful summit. The first step, lower down, would suggest they were fatally behind schedule. Odell himself wavered throughout his life, sometimes certain of the second step, other times less sure. Modern researchers have used his descriptions, the timing, and computer analysis of sightlines to try determining exactly where the climbers were. The critical question remains: were they ascending towards the summit, or already descending after achieving it? Every minute, every foot of elevation matters when reconstructing those final hours. The window for success was brutally narrow. After Mallory and Irvine disappeared, search attempts found only fragments. An ice axe, believed to be Irvine's, was discovered in 1933 at 27,760 feet on the ridge, suggesting a fall or desperate anchor attempt. But no bodies, no camera, no definitive evidence emerged. For 75 years, the mountain kept its secrets locked in ice and snow. Multiple expeditions searched, but Everest is vast, and bodies can be buried, pulverized by avalanches, or hidden in crevasses forever. The mystery became mountaineering legend, debated in climbing clubs and academic circles. Some argued the primitive equipment made success impossible. They wore leather boots, multiple layers of wool and silk, and carried oxygen systems that were heavy and unreliable. Others pointed to Mallory's exceptional skill and determination. The second step, a near-vertical 90-foot rock wall at 28,300 feet, became the crux of all arguments. Modern climbers use a metal ladder installed by Chinese mountaineers in 1975 to surmount it. Could Mallory and Irvine have free-climbed it in 1924, in thin air, wearing stiff leather boots? Technical climbers have attempted to recreate the climb with period equipment, with mixed results. Some succeeded, proving it possible. Others barely survived, proving it nearly suicidal. On May 1, 1999, Conrad Anker, part of a search expedition sponsored by filmmaker and climber Eric Simonson, was scanning the slopes below the route at 26,160 feet when he spotted something unusual. A patch of white against the grey scree that didn't move like rock or snow. As he approached, he realized he was looking at a human body, naturally mummified by the extreme cold and dry air. But this wasn't a recent casualty. The clothing was ancient, the body frozen in a position suggesting a desperate attempt to arrest a fall. When Anchor examined the name tag sewn into the wool layers, his heart stopped. G. Mallory. George Mallory, missing for 75 years, had been found. The body lay face down, arms extended upward, one leg broken. The expedition team documented everything with forensic precision. They found personal items, a broken altimeter, a tin of bouillon cubes, letters from his wife, a monogrammed handkerchief. Conspicuously absent was the photograph of Ruth that Mallory had promised to leave on the summit. Optimists seized on this. Perhaps he had left it on top, meaning he had summited. But the broken leg, the position, the location, all suggested a catastrophic fall from somewhere above. The single piece of evidence that could definitively answer the question remains missing. Mallory's vest pocket Kodak camera. If found, the film inside could potentially be developed even after a century in Everest's deep freeze. Kodak experts have stated that properly frozen film could retain latent images that modern technology might recover. But the camera wasn't on Mallory's body. Either it was with Irvine, whose body has never been found despite multiple searches, or it was lost during the fall. Chinese climber Wang Hongbao claimed in 1979 that he had found a body he called English dead during the 1975 Chinese expedition, at a location different from where Mallory was found, possibly Irvine. Wang described the body as being at 26,575 feet and mentioned the clothing had deteriorated, revealing flesh like it was sleeping. The next day, before he could lead others to the location, Wang was killed in an avalanche, taking the secret to his grave. Modern expeditions have searched the areas Wang described, using ground-penetrating radar, systematic grid searches, and high-resolution photography. But Everest is a dynamic environment. Bodies that were visible decades ago can be buried by snow, swept away by avalanches, or tumbled into crevasses by shifting glaciers. Whether Mallory and Irvine reached the summit remains one of mountaineering's most compelling mysteries. The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive. A final sighting near the top, a body positioned as if descending, a missing photograph, an absent camera. Perhaps it doesn't matter. Their attempt, with courage and equipment that seem impossible by modern standards, pushed human limits in ways that inspire climbers a century later. The mountain keeps some secrets forever. If this blew your mind, subscribe for weekly facts that change how you see the world.